This is the second episode of Cooking with the Doctor. The reason we do these little vignettes is because we really enjoy cooking. It's been part of my history, my family history, growing up in the food business for over 100 years, and it's a lot of fun. In my opinion, there's a lot of dysfunction in this world. There's a lot of lack of joy. Everybody's balkanized. Everybody hates everybody because of everything. What's one of the few things they can agree to? Food. If you agree to food, you got a good start, okay? Now, what we do is the way we do it. Not necessarily has to be that way, although in my world it does. So we're going to make gravy. Gravy versus sauce. The eternal argument in the Italian-American household. I'm napolitan. To us, if it had meat in it, it was gravy. If it was a marinara sauce, there was no meat, it's a sauce. It's just the distinction. So the first thing you need to do when you're going to cook in this manner is have everything laid out in front of you. You've got to have all your pots, your pans, whatever machinery you're going to use. It's got to be from a neat kitchen, ready to go. Cleanliness is next to godliness. And cleaning as you go is the most important thing you can do, or it's a disaster at the end. I learned that 65 years ago in a butcher shop. I would also say that you get all the meats that you want together, okay? So what are we going to use? We're going to use a piece of beef. We're going to use a piece of pork, okay? Preferably pork loin from the shoulder end, or spare ribs, neck bones, sweet, pork neck bones are outstanding. Sweet Italian sausage and hot Italian sausage. When you buy the Italian sausage, I would recommend that you get it without fennel, senza fennel, because that's a different flavor that it will impart. And we also make beef bracciole. That's generally a slice of top round, pounded deep, pounded nice and thin, and we go through the ingredients as you'll see later on in the episode. And we also like to use a piece of godin, which is pork skin, which unfortunately I was unable to procure for this particular recording, so we used a piece of boneless pork instead. Very good for a bracciole. And meatballs. Now, 9 million kinds of meatballs. How'd your grandmother make them? How'd your mother make them? How'd your father make them? That's how you make them, unless you find one you like better. The way I do it, okay, because always people would say, I want beef, pork, and veal. To me, veal is a tasteless meat. If you don't doctor it up, no pun intended, it adds nothing. Beef and pork, 50-50, grind it 2 or 3 times depending on the consistency you want, and you season it the way we will be showing you. For the gravy itself, I like San Marzano tomatoes. Pick the brand you like. I use one called La Carmela because I find it to be the best. Certain brands have a lot of sugar added. We try to stay away from sugar. Sugar is your enemy in anything you do. Sugar feeds cancer. Sugar is not good. There's always going to be an inherent amount in it, but you got to try to keep it to a minimum. So we use all natural ingredients if we can, and we use the best of everything that we can. The first step in any kind of food preparation is getting all your ingredients together and ready. When you're making a complicated long-term meal like this, the last thing you want to do is stop, open a can of tomatoes, take out the seeds while something else is going on and something's burning on the stove. Organization is the key to success. So the first thing I do, because I make a lot at a time, is I take out my big machine, and you'll see it, and I run all my tomatoes through it. This way I take out the seeds. That's ready to go when I need it. Next, I would say whatever condiments you're going to use, onions, garlic, parsley, have all those condiments and spices at your disposal, readily, so you don't have to keep running here and running there and everything else. So the first step would be olive oil, and we use something called anzonia, which is rendered pork fat in a nice big stainless steel pot. The pork fat needs to be rendered down and reconstituted into liquid, and take a nice sweet onion and throw it in and slowly let it saute. Step 2, all the meats that you're going to put in, the pork, the beef, the lamb if you like, the sausage, put them in a big bowl, salt and pepper them. Nice. Mix them all up. Gently put them in the pot and let them slowly saute. When they're nice and brown, then what you can do is take them out to make room for more meat, because you're going to do it in batches. While that's cooking, you can be making your bracciole. Beef, pork, pork skin, lay it out on your counter, salt, pepper, garlic. Use fresh garlic, cut it real thin. I use a garlic press and just rub it on like a paste. Salt, pepper, garlic, parsley, pignoli nuts, raisins, and Romano cheese. I'm partial to full wheat brand. Thank you, Gil Titel. That's what we use. And we roll it up, tie it individually, not one big long string around, because if it breaks, you have a mess in the pot. And as the other pieces of meat are done, you take them out and you brown that. Once the meat is all browned, and this doesn't count the meatballs because that's a separate entity in and of itself. Once the meat is all brown, you put it all back in the pot, turn the gas up, take some red wine, a nice hearty Zinfandel or what Italian table red wine, a Cabernet, whatever you like. They can put at least a cup in, cover it, and let it steam. After it steams for about 2 minutes, lower the gas down, and then you put your tomatoes in. The tomatoes you prior had taken all the seeds out. Put as much as you can in there, leave a little room on the top because you can put meatballs in later. And you put fresh basil. And you're going to also add tomato paste. And that's to taste. I use generally one medium can of paste to a number 10 can. That's how thick you want your gravy. This is a work in progress. You're going to make it the way you like it. So that's the gravy at that point is cooking. Use a flat pronged wooden instrument to scrape along the bottom on a constant basis and mix it up so it doesn't burn. Don't cover it. Let it cook. It's going to cook for at least 2 to 3 hours. It's all going to settle down and you're waiting for what we affectionately call the first blip. The first blip is the first bubble that comes up. Lower your gas down and you want a gentle roll of the blip, constantly stirring 2.5, 3 hours until you have the taste you want. Next step is going to be the meatballs. Again, beef and pork, salt, pepper, Romano cheese, parsley, garlic. Different people put different things. I've heard of putting raisins in. I don't. Doesn't mean it's wrong or right. I don't. And the secret again is the bread. The nice hard loaf of Italian bread that you soak in water, squeeze all the water out and mix it in. And don't forget the eggs. You got to have at least 3 eggs to a pound, 2 to 3 eggs to a pound, depending on the size of the egg. And mix it to the right consistency, and you'll know what it is. And taste the meat. Don't be afraid. If it's not salty enough, and don't forget the cheese is going to be a little salty, put a little more salt in it. Salt, medium ground black pepper, and that's pretty much it as far as seasonings are concerned. Mix it up, taste it. When you got it right, make them about a little bit bigger than a golf ball. Make them too big, it's hard to cook them because they overcook on the outside and they're undercooked on the inside. So you make all your meatballs, your nice thick pile. You get a black cast iron frying pan, a little bit of olive oil, and again with the anzonia, the rendered pork fat, slice a nice sweet onion thick and let that caramelize in there. And as the meatballs are cooking and you're turning them periodically, they're cooking on top of the onions. You're not putting the onion in the meatball, you're infusing the flavor of the onion into it. Meatballs are done, you take them, you put them on a side. Half the fun is making gravy is eating meatballs hot out of the pot. Let them sit for a while. When you're done with all that, then you can take the meatballs and throw them in the gravy and let it simmer with a constant stirring. You may want to put a little bit of Romano cheese in there, taste it, make sure you have enough basil. If it's too thick, don't cook it as much. If it's not thick enough, use a little bit more tomato paste. And again, you start with the best ingredients you can get, and then what you make has got to be good. So, the gravy's cooking. It's getting to the point where you're going to sit down and enjoy it. The $1,000,000 question is, what kind of macaroni? Pasta is a recent invention. When I grew up, hey Ma, where are the Macs? We're making macaroni. It only became pasta when it became shishi, and it went from $4.95 a plate to $29.95 a plate. Then it became pasta. That's another story. So, what kind of macaroni would you like? What do you like? For this episode, we made homemade ravioli. Big production, okay? That's another tape. You can use rigatoni, fusilli, whatever you like. You fresh, frozen, I would suggest you get a good brand. You don't want the 99-cent special. Most of the pastas we use are artisan. They'll retail for $5.49, $5.99 a pound. But they've got a mouthfeel, they've got a texture that is outstanding. A gravy like this, I like something with a line, like a rigatoni, which got lines to hold the gravy. Okay? You don't want to use a vermicelli, that's too thin. You would use that with a fish sauce. It's for a soupier or a lighter red sauce. Notice I said sauce and not gravy. You would use spaghetti or macaroni alla chitarra. Macaroni alla chitarra is a square spaghetti. 4 sides to hold the gravy so it doesn't slide off. These are all important factors I want you to know. Pick the pasta you like or the macaroni you like, and it's a home run. There's nothing better than a cold meatball and a few rigatoni at 3 o'clock in the morning out of the refrigerator. And when you go to reheat them, black frying pan, a little bit of butter, slowly simmer them so the macaroni get crisp a little bit and they're chewy. Fantastic. Enjoy.